What's going on, my fellow Kino Lords? So today I'm going to be reviewing If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You, which is written and directed by Mary Bronstein and is starring Rose Byrne. So this was a film that I knew absolutely nothing about going into it. The only thing I knew about it was that it was being distributed by A24 and it stars Rose Byrne. That is basically it. I mean, because the filmmaker, Mary Bronstein, she has nothing to go off of in terms of what I should expect. The last thing that she directed was a short film in 2009, and that's it, you know? So she has seemingly kind of come out of nowhere to write and direct this movie. And I gotta tell you, If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is by far the most stressful watch of 2025. This was so exhausting, super anxiety inducing, very frustrating at many points of the movie. But I'd be lying if I didn't tell you that I really enjoyed it still. I think there's a lot about this movie that really gives you a lot to talk about. Like, there's so much to chew on in terms of what this movie is tackling. I found it to be a very layered movie, not only in terms of, its thematic qualities about motherhood and things of that nature, but I think in terms of character, it's very rich as well. And I know that some people might highly disagree with that because their main character, the whole shtick of her character really is that she's a fucking horrible mother. And I know that, honestly, I think your average viewer watching this movie would probably check out in the first 10 or 15 minutes. I think they would just move on to something else. They would just be like, oh my God, Rose Byrne's a terrible fucking mother. Fuck her. Let's just move on. But I found it to be a lot more layered and interesting and deeper than just that on the surface, personally. But just to give you a quick idea of what this movie is about, essentially, is Rose Byrne's character plays a mother, and her child is essentially sick, like she's having some kind of eating disorder or something, and she has to have a tube stuck in her so she can get all of the nutrients that she needs. So the reason why this movie is so stressful and exhausting is because Rose Byrne's character is so obviously exhausted and so stressed out the entire fucking movie, not only having to take care of her sick daughter on her own because her husband is off working all the fucking time. He's literally the whole movie, he's just not around. She's having to do everything on her own, and then on top of that, she's a therapist, okay? So she's having to deal with listening to other people's fucking problems all the time and their anxieties and stuff like that. And she is just in a constant state of having so many problems thrown at her, yet nothing really seems to be being resolved ever. This movie has there's actually quite a bit of symbolic imagery in this movie. There's this whole thing with this isn't really spoilery because it happens very early on in the movie, but there's this whole thing with a hole in the ceiling. There's a huge symbolic emphasis on that image that I think is engrossing and is interesting, and you can read into in certain ways. And on top of the symbolic imagery as well, it just offers, at times, really dark and breathtaking imagery as well, very space-time, spiritual-esque, but still feeling very morbid. And this movie, I just feel like, as I mentioned, is such a stressful watch and very exhausting. And yes, it's a lot of the content that makes it that way, everything I just mentioned, but it's also just its style as well. Because the camera work is super up close. It's a very claustrophobic style of camera work where 90% of the shots are very tight and doesn't really leave you much room to breathe. And on top of that, there's a stylistic choice of basically never showing the daughter's face the entire movie. And I know that would probably, again, another thing about it that would, I think, aggravate your average viewer and be like, what the hell, you're giving me nothing. This just feels so suffocating. And the film does feel very suffocating. Because, once it starts, it doesn't really ever seem to let go. And but I think there's like so much here. Like, yes, everybody could watch this movie and be like, Rose Byrne's just a shit mother, and that's all there is to it, and walk away from it. But to me, there's like so much of this movie, in my opinion, served as cinematic birth control. Like, and that's not just me. Like, when I walked after the film was done and I walked out of the theater, I was talking to a few people briefly about this movie, and they were all like, "I'm never having kids. I'm never gonna have kids." And you know, I feel like that's gonna also be like a common takeaway from this movie, is just kind of like showcasing the psychological toll and responsibilities that it does actually take to take care of a child. And in this case, it's not only a child, but a sick child. And you know, just because your child is sick doesn't also stop them from being incredibly annoying as well. And I think, I don't know, I just feel like this movie showcases in a lot of ways, not only just through Rose Byrne's, you know, her character and her own child, but other people that she comes across in this movie. You know, it's a very, I feel like a very honest psychological depiction of the kind of toll it could take on a mother who has no help at all and is perhaps not even ready to be a mother and is having to deal with so much responsibility around her. It's a very entrapped feeling. And I think that feeling of entrapment is expressed very well, you know, not only through this film's style in terms of the way like the camera work is so tight on everything, but just like how she can never like and this is why she's kind of portrayed as a bad mother, because she shouldn't be going out and leaving her kid alone, you know, but she does do that a lot in this movie. You know, it's this sense of freedom that she desperately doesn't want to let go of. You know, and you know, everybody deserves a sense of freedom. You know, no one wants to feel like every fucking move they make is dependent on something else. But that's exactly what I feel like a lot of mothers feel being a mother. You know, I'm just a man. I can't speak for women, but I do feel like from what I've heard, and just from like the logic of it, and it just seems like, yeah, that can feel like a very like encaged feeling. And I feel like there's a symbolic correlation with that entrapment feeling with the scene in this movie with a hamster in a box that is just fucking batshit. That's another thing about this movie. I didn't really mention this yet, but it's actually kind of funny too. There's some darkly hilarious moments throughout this movie. But a lot of it's very subtle and dry, you know, but there are some moments that are just like actually like genuinely laugh out loud funny. But it's all very like tongue in cheek and very dark, and sometimes can serve as satire or whatever. But yeah, like not only is just this movie stressful because of everything, but like even the casting of this is stressful to me, because it just seems so like there's a bunch of misfits in this movie. I think because I mean, you have Rose Byrne as the lead, okay, but then you have Conan O'Brien in this movie as like her buddy / therapist situation, and that's a whole awkward thing in this movie. And then you have Christian Slater in this movie making an appearance, and then you have fucking ASAP Rocky that has a prominent role in this movie, and it's just like there's so much about this movie that it just stresses you the fuck out, and even the casting is part of it. But I think it works. I really do think that it all works very well. And I love the ending to this movie. I really, really love the ending to this movie. I think it's it has a very poignant way to just end everything. There's a lot of meaning. There's a lot of you could tell in my opinion, like when I watch this, like the ending, it feels like she definitely had like this in mind from the very beginning. And I think once you watch the movie, you'll understand why I say that. But it was a really creative choice that I thought ended with something that really gives you a lot to chew on and talk about. Like that's the one thing I loved about this movie, is like I feel like there is a lot to talk about. And again, like, and this is a weird genre. This movie doesn't only apply to one genre. Like in one way, it's like a straight up body horror movie. With one scene involving a tube, which is just fucking crazy. That was a crazy scene. But in another way, it's like a psychological drama. Another way, it's like a weird dark comedy. So it just blends a lot of genres together. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly, but like just prepare for something that is, I don't know, just very anxiety inducing, for sure. Um, but yeah, there's just a lot here, guys. There's a lot here. I want to honestly probably maybe do a deeper dive on this. Like I'd love to maybe do like a scene analysis on this movie. I think that would be fun. Because I do think that there's a lot here. And it's a fucking wild one. This is a wild fucking movie. I got a lot out of it. I'm still thinking about it. Frustrating, stressful, yes, but also admirable and thought-provoking. So I'm going to give If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You a soft 8 out of 10. This was a nice surprise. Really, really great stuff. And I highly recommend you check it out. Fair warning about what you're getting into. But yeah, I think that's all I got to say. Hopefully I didn't forget anything. But that's all I got to say about If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You. If you really enjoyed what I had to say, please give it a thumbs up and share it amongst your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to be updated on more film related content.